Hey, what's up guys? This is gonna be a very special video because it's the first collab on my channel that isn't an April Fool's prank! I have taken it upon myself to gather a highly elite team of YouTube artists and challenged them to a game of character design telephone. What the heck is that? Okay, so basically I draw a character, then put a blur filter over it, and send it to another artist. Then with that as their only reference, they have to redraw the character. A blur effect is added to that, sent to the next artist, and so on and so forth. By the end of the line, you end up with something completely different than what was started. This got off the rails super fast, and honestly, I love that. Exactly what my intent was. All the artists involved will be linked in the description, so please give them a look. They're all awesome people and very uniquely skilled. And without further ado, let's kick things off. Okay, so for this game, I thought my D&D character Evsevis would be perfect. Evsevis is a tiefling cleric who grew up in a cult worshipping the fallen god of wealth, Tiamat. They are also, notably, the child of the cult leader himself, and the cult's high priest. So they alone have the privilege and authority to directly communicate with Tiamat. Shout out to my partner, by the way, for writing and DMing that campaign. Love you, Oz! Mwah! I went with them as opposed to one of my story OCs because those are all regular humans with very down-to-earth designs, and I thought a fantasy element would be more fun for the other artists to play with. I had kind of a hard time deciding the pose at first because Evsevis is a very disciplined, grounded character, but I wanted the silhouette to be dynamic. I liked them sitting crisscross, but realized the overall shape would end up, a bit weird and obscure a lot of the clothing detail. So eventually I was like, why don't we take this leg and just, swoop, drop it down. I also had a great time playing with, drumroll please, shape language! Being brought up in the noble class of a cult that teaches complete obedience to their nefarious god, Evsevis was raised to see their role of a servant to divinity as their immutable purpose, to be carried out no matter the cost. To represent this, I wanted the gold element to be sharp and unyielding. Then of course, as the campaign goes on, I'm planning to have them grow from this and dismantle that rhetoric within themselves, and the more flowing pieces allude to this freedom. Then of course, as a cleric, had to have them showing off some spells, obviously. My favorite magic system by far has got to be the sigils from Owl House, so I took a page out of that visual, and I'm anticipating at some point later down the line these might turn into wings. Let's just see what happens. Okay, on to our first brave soul. Godspeed, Cream. First up, CremeXO.
Hello. So, admittedly, when I initially saw the first image, my mind immediately went to that anime version of Nicole Watterson and Gumball, if anyone knows what I'm talking about. But I figure there's no way it's that, so instead I delved into whatever semblance of shape language I could dissect from the blurriness. My final product wound up being this sort of regal alien lady. What first jumped out at me was the blue color palette. That, paired with the color scheme of the background, made me think of space, so I went in that direction. The second thing that gave me that impression was the head. I thought, okay, if there is any hair, then it might just be really short, so it's not quite a pixie cut, but something in that vein. And it might just be me, but I felt like there was more to it up top than just more hair. So after thinking on it some more, I went with some horns. And that's pretty much what solidified the main premise behind my design. With the outfit, your guess is pretty much as good as mine, though I tried to interpret it as much as possible. To me, when I see it, I think some kind of dress that borders between a chiton, like from ancient Greece, and one of those side slit dresses with a gold accent by the waist. On the chest, I tied the yellow hue to whatever light source was emitting from behind them, and thought maybe those things are controlled by this character, just as my own little creative spin. Towards the end of my sketching process, I also noticed a lighter shade of blue that sort of curves on both sides of the character, so I thought maybe a choker made of ribbon or a similar fabric as some kind of accessory. I'm not 100% sure myself, but I did my best. And lastly, I tried to stay true to what I saw in the source material and kept them shoeless, but I could be wrong about that too, but we'll see. As for the background, I stuck to my little space theme and put her into this backdrop reminiscent of Rainbow Road, where it's just this path taking you from place to place in the middle of space. And I thought those lights could have been lanterns, but maybe not. I thought up a few possibilities in my mind before settling on what I did. I was also asked to say what I think the character's name would be, and the one I keep coming back to for some reason is Sky, but like spelled a little uniquely, like SKAI or something like that. Which, in a sense, maybe kind of suits her, at least from my perspective. And that about covers it. I had lots of fun with this, and I'm really happy with the piece, and I'm super excited to see what everyone else does. Thank you so much for having me.
Next victim, Colleen Gundersen.
So the first thing I did when I received the blurred image was draw over it with whatever shapes I could make out. When I first got a look at the image, I genuinely had no idea what I was looking at, so this exercise helped me warm up a little and it got me thinking outside the box with what I could do for the character's design. Some of the sketches followed the shapes a little more closely, with others I took a couple liberties and played with the shapes to see what worked. I landed on a sketch where the character was essentially an upside-down triangle with floating glove hands, a long nose, and big poofy hair that stuck out from under a top hat. While it didn't look like it was part of the original design, I also decided to give him a big smile that spread all across his body. Almost immediately I was reminded of that one villain from Wander Over Yonder, Screwball Jones. And because that specific character is voiced by Weird Al, I decided to carry on the tradition of silly names and call this guy Wacky Williams, or Wacky Will for short. Maybe it was the cooler color palette that Will had, but when I realized I drew one of his hands reaching out to the viewers, I got the impression that this guy is probably a lot more friendly than Screwball Jones. I got the vibe that Wacky Will is some kind of performer or comedian, and I feel like he'd do some audience participation exercises to get the crowd to loosen up and have more fun at his shows. He's just a silly little guy who likes making people laugh. I guess we'll see how accurate or inaccurate that was to the person who drew this before me, though. While I was cleaning Will up, I decided to keep the pupils in his eyes as scribbles because I liked the sort of smiling friends character energy that this sketch had. Who knows, maybe something like Wacky Will would have been a character if the show went on a little longer. I thought about having Will's hat floating above his head, but I decided to keep it nailed down because it would make it a little easier for his hair to jut outward from underneath it. Normally if I'm drawing characters, I'll make the outer line art a little thicker to differentiate overlap and help them stick out a little bit more. Sometimes I'll also add a layer effect to the whole character and cover their design in a stark white outline like I did here. I did something I don't normally do with illustrations like this and decided to make the background lineless to draw the viewer's eye over to Wacky Will even more. Usually I keep the line art for backgrounds relatively thin and add some gaps in it to guide the viewer's eye to the characters more, but playing around with a lineless style was a lot of fun. Also, I realized near the end that I accidentally made the canvas the wrong size and I drew that way the entire time and it skewed the time-lapse footage at the beginning and end, but don't worry, I was able to fix it. And yeah, here's Wacky Will, everybody. He's very big on slapstick humor, prop acting, and folly, and he tells the funniest jokes you have ever heard in your life.
Moving on to Cornobbleee.
Hiya! Okay, so this is kinda gonna be speed round because I've had some issues with exporting the speed paint, so it's only 1 minute and 7 seconds long, but here we go. So at first I didn't really know what to think of the blur. I thought what I made the eyes kind of looked like a bra at first, but I couldn't get the shapes right to fit a human. So, I mean, at first I thought like a mermaid because the pink on the bottom kind of looked like something like a fin. But then I noticed like these stripy patterns on the back, so I maybe thought like a fairy or something. So I was staring at it for like way too long, and all of a sudden it clicked. I had eyes, I had a nose, I saw a mouth. In the end, it kind of looked like a weird moth, ghost, fairy thing with a top hat and this giant orange nose flying into the sunset. And I think his name will be Grunkenfunkel. Don't pay much attention to it, it's a weird fairy name. He's gonna be a troublemaker, and I'm running out of time, so okay, bye. Good luck to the next one.
So, there was a slight miscommunication, and this next artist ended up just fully editing her section, sprites, transitions, and all. I didn't want all her hard work to go to waste, so enjoy the cinematic stylings of ReigningLeafs.
Alright, it's my turn, and for anyone who doesn't know, my name is Leaf. Anyway, when I received the character, it looked like this. I don't know what I was expecting, but this definitely wasn't it. Other than my immediate shock when I saw this thing, the first things that stood out to me was the overall color palette, which I find very pretty, and the blue and orange blobs, which I assume to be the main body. Other than those blobs, I was struggling a lot to see anything that could even closely resemble a character, and it didn't help that I had no idea if this was a human, an animal, or some kind of monster design. But that's the fun of this character design challenge. I consider myself somewhat of a concept artist, so to help me get some ideas for this character design, I just started sketching. And after some hard thinking and doodling, I came up with these 3 sketches. But out of all of them, the last one stood out to me the most. I thought that a seraphim mermaid design would allow me to perfectly fill out these blobs of color and give me enough room to stretch proportions if I needed to. So now that I have a solid idea for this character, let's start drawing the final illustration. Okay, now I'm going to talk a little bit about how I drew this. So to make sure all of my colors lined up with the blurred image I received, instead of sketching like I normally do, I sketched right on over those blobs of color, fitting my design inside of them. This strategy helped me a lot with getting the foundations of my design put in, but I didn't want to rely on the blurred image too much, so when I started my clean up sketch, I turned the layer off, because I want to try my best to make this drawing look good both blurred and unblurred. So for most of my drawing process, I just drew how I normally would, because I knew I could always go back later and edit my image to make the colors match up a little bit better. When I started this final illustration, I was actually super surprised how well my concept design was matching up with the blurred image, because I didn't sketch any of my ideas on top of the blurred image itself. I drew them off to the side, and while that gave me a good idea of the design, I had no way to know if it would actually line up, but it turned out that it lined up pretty good. I only had to change a couple things between the first design and the final design. Some of the things I changed was I really wanted to have these moon patterns on her fins for the white spots to kind of give her a sun and moon looking motif, but with the way I had to have her positioned, that was not going to work. So instead I changed her hands to be white. I don't necessarily like that design decision. I just think it makes her hands stand out way too much if she was a real character, but for this challenge, I kind of have to sacrifice a little bit of my preferences to make sure it lined up with the image I received. I honestly don't think this design is anywhere close to the right one, and I have no idea if the person after me is gonna create anything like this either, but I hope I was able to get some of the elements correct. I'm just so excited to see where she goes and who she turns into. So here is my final drawing, and it's time to package her up and send her off to the next person. Good luck!
Next up, Scatterrbrained Art.
I really struggled initially with figuring out what this was supposed to be. I pretty much immediately decided that it should be some kind of butterfly person. The body being blue very much felt like some kind of spirit or genie, something wispy. I really struggled to figure out what that tannish blob in the middle were. It were sort of just giving peanut, which I was, like, weirdly against for some reason. I considered a basket of wheat or baguettes, knitting, honey, and a stuffed animal. I liked the idea of a stuffed animal, and figured it made sense to give a butterfly fairy a caterpillar plushie. However, as I kept drawing, it just kind of came alive. That is her son, a beautiful baby boy. As for the rest of her, I mostly just let the colors and other themes guide me. The thing below her felt like it could easily be a big flower, and butterflies are pollinators, so I made the ends of her hands and feet covered in pollen. I think I may have figured out the perfect name for her. Iris. Firstly, it obviously connects to the eyes on her wings, but it's also reminiscent of her flower petal dress. It's even roughly the right colors and shape. The color of the background made it feel like it was nighttime, so I added some stars and also some kind of star-adjacent freckles on her body and face, which could also be more pollen. That's up for interpretation, really. As for the whole thing with the eyes on her wings, I imagined her to be some kind of supernatural creature besides fairy. Maybe she's some kind of oracle or similarly. That could also tie in with her name, as Iris in Greek mythology is the messenger of the gods. One of them anyway. There is also just something kind of unnatural about a butterfly out during the night, at least to me, so that kind of helped putting together her supernatural vibe. Clearly, she's also very protective of this little creature, this little guy that she's sort of harboring currently. So, that's her. Gosh, I wonder if I'm anywhere near close.
Calling Jay is bad at art. No, they're not.
Yo, what's up? I'm Jay. Thank you so much for having me on this collab. And honestly, Telephone is a game I was always kind of bad at. I have horrible hearing, and honestly, it's sometimes mostly just selective. But I am telling you, every time I used to play Telephone when I was younger, I would get stuff wrong all the time. And I do think that even when we did this collab, that I think I got some stuff wrong. And even when I'm voicing this over, I can tell looking at the image that it was given to me and looking at what I came up with, I already messed stuff up. The posing was kind of easy. I noticed that this was more of a majestical OC because of the colors that I could tell that was their skin, and also like the pose that they were already kind of hitting that I could try to tell from the given blurred picture. But one thing I know I messed up on was these wings. I am looking over that reference picture and I can tell that they're butterfly wings, but oh, nope, Jay, you wanted to make bird wings because I guess that's what you saw at the time. But since they did have blue skin in the given picture, I tried to give them more of elf features, try to give them more elongated limbs because they kind of reminded me of Avatar. And then the rest of it was I just wanted to give them some jewelry, some piercings, make them stand out a little more, fix their expression, fix their hair, add all those little extra details to make them stick out as much as I could. And even when I did the skin, I gave them more of tribal markings. I felt like that gave them more personality, and since I was tying this a little bit to Avatar, that's what I wanted the feeling to be. The wings, I could tell from the given reference picture that they did have some sort of eyes on them, and at least that's what I got right on the eyes. Oh my goodness. But other than that, I just fixed up the touching, the lighting, added a little darker hues to their hair, and that's honestly it. Oh, and their name. Ooh, their name. I kind of feel like RSL's a really good name. I don't know why, it's just, I kind of like the name RSL. But thank you so much for having me. Bye!
And last, Ichigo.
Good morning, I'm Lizzie, and oh my gosh, this was really fun. I kind of rushed it because I did it like all in one day, but we're here now, so it's okay. So when I first got my image, I was really confused. The only thing that I was like 100% sure of was there was wings. There was wings and this person was blue. That's all I knew. And I couldn't really tell if they were a guy or a girl, so I ended up just making mine ambiguous. But they also just kind of looked a little too masculine, but whatever. For appearance though, I ended up kind of taking inspiration from like Greek sculptures and statues and whatnot. Or Roman, I don't know. And at first I was gonna do like a watery theme where they're like water just because of the blue skin, but I didn't end up going with that. I started with the blue, but then I ended up just doing like a thermal color palette, which I do really like, and it doesn't really make any sense for actually like what the image I was referencing. I just kind of went off the rails. I really liked giving them super long curly hair that is blue. I did keep that. It is the dark blue. I'm very excited to see what the other drawings are, especially because mine was the last one, so I wonder just how different it is, especially since I didn't copy it one-on-one and I kind of just like did whatever. Like I did the general vibe and then I was like, okay, time to do whatever I can think of. Personality wise, I think they are a very monotone, studious kind of person. Maybe they even low-key think that they're better than everybody. Like they're kind of ignorant, I would say. But anyway, I decided that this fellow person gal thing is named Apollo. That because I just really love naming OCs after Greek gods. So this will be the 4th that I've done, and this is Apollo. But thank you so much for inviting me to do this. This was super fun. Now for a little self-promo, y'all should go check out my channel. It is Jazzy. And yeah, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
So that was fun. I'm really happy with how different these ended up being, but also clearly read as an extension of what came before it, if that makes sense. It was very interesting though that at least 2 of these were crazy accurate to their blurred reference. We've got the 2 silly little guys who I like to imagine are twins, and then Cream was basically spot on for the original design. In fact, it actually kind of made me blur the next ones a little bit harder, if I'm being honest. Yeah, I was flabbergasted. Good job, Cream, frick. Thank you so much to everyone who participated, and as for you, by watching this video, you are legally obligated to hype them up in the comments. I definitely want to do more of this in the future, so if you guys have any ideas, I'm all ears. Okay, bye!